Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Unquestionably Raw podcast. Tonight, we're previewing the Los Angeles Clippers for the 2016-2017 NBA season. Joining us again is Keith Smith of RealGM in today's Fastbreak. Keith, how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Doing very well. So everybody knows Matt, and they know me, so we're going to jump right into you, Keith. We're going to start by talking about the Clippers roster. Of course, you know the new additions to the team: Maurice Spates, Brandon Bass, Raymond Felton, Allen Anderson. Then you've got the two rookies, and Bryce Johnson and Diamond Stone. So basically, kind of looking at that roster, how do you see those new additions fitting in on the team?
Yeah, Doc Rivers did it again, right? He got vets to join on vet minimum contracts that are really steals at this point, especially considering the free agent market this summer. Maurice Spates, Brandon Bass, Allen Anderson, those are all quality depth guys. Raymond Felton, a good piece to have. They're a little overloaded with point guards, but Felton's a good one, good guy to have on the roster. And then you've got the two rookies, Stone and Johnson. They're not going to play too much. Doc doesn't really do rookies anyway. He doesn't get them on the floor very often. And Johnson, it came out today, I think he's got a hernia, I think they said. I could be wrong, and that might be something else. But he's having some issues, so he may not be ready to go for a while. So those two guys probably spend, most of their time, see their time in practice. But good deep bench in LA. That's important with some older guys who have missed time with injuries over the years. They also kept Jamal Crawford and Austin Rivers and brought them back. So, the Clippers look good and deep.
Okay. Matt, looking at those new additions, what do you think of Spates and Bass and Raymond Felton?
I like those pickups, especially Mo Buckets. I like Maurice Spates. He can come in, rebound the ball for him, hit open threes. Brandon Bass, he's a, gritty guy, going to bring some energy. Raymond Felton, I think, was a really good pickup for them because I think now you don't really have to worry. You can throw him and Austin Rivers out there or whoever. If Austin Rivers is playing like garbage, you can just go with Raymond Felton. He'll be able to push the tempo for him. I don't know how much Diamond Stone and Bryce Johnson will play, actually. I see Wes Johnson. I think he'll come off the bench. I think they'll stick with Bamute, better defender. Even though Wes Johnson can hit the corner threes better than Bamute because we know Bamute is not really the greatest shooter in the world. But that is definitely, on this roster, that is definitely their weak spot is that small forward because at this point, what are you going to get out of Paul Pierce? He's kind of like Elton Brand for them now. He'll be a good locker room guy. And the starters, we know what we're going to get out of them. Blake Griffin, Jordan, Redick, Chris Paul. I think they'll be good this year. It'll be another typical Clippers season.
Yeah, I like Spates. He's added that three-point shot, so every time he gets the ball, he's going to chuck it up. He's never seen a shot that he will not take. So with Brandon Bass, he's going to do your dirty work, get you some rebounds, get you some points. Raymond Felton, off the bench is huge because he can spell CP3 for some actual legitimate minutes. And, as a Clippers fan, you don't feel like you're getting cheated watching Austin Rivers run the point guard anymore. He can kind of move over to the two if needed and let Raymond Felton kind of run the point guard spot. Allen Anderson is another new addition. If he is fully healthy because he had injuries last season, if he's fully healthy, I see him right there in the mix for that small forward spot. Paul Pierce is going to move over to the backup four. This is his last year, so he's going to ride off in the sunset, just kind of be there, play. He'll probably play about 16, 18 minutes a game, I would assume, and probably take some nights off, no back-to-backs or anything like that. But with Allen Anderson, he is a shooter, can stretch the floor, which they need. Wesley Johnson, Matt, as you said, added that corner three-point shot, which is vital. He's athletic. But what they need the most in that starting lineup is Mbah a Moute and his defense at the small forward spot. He is their key defender. Then you've got DeAndre Jordan that can, block shots if he needs to. But Mbah a Moute, if he can give you anything on offense, Basically it's setting good screens and things like that for other players to kind of get to the rim and maybe getting some cuts to the basket. But he's not going to be a double-digit scorer by any means.
No. And if they go small, he can guard some power forwards.
Yeah, he can. He's played the power forward spot, of course, in Philadelphia and some other spots.
He actually played the 4 for the Clippers a lot last year. That was one of their best lineups at the end. When Blake was out, he shifted up to the 4, and they kind of did mix and match at the small forward spot. So the other nice thing about him in the starting lineup is he doesn't need the ball, right? He doesn't even particularly want the ball. And you have 3 guys who need it to be effective in CP3, Griffin, and Redick. And then DeAndre gets a little cranky if he doesn't get some touches every now and again. So, so you want to make sure, it never hurts on a team like that to have the one guy who's willing to just do everything but, score the ball. So I think he helps them a lot there.
Absolutely. So going into our second question, basically the Clippers, they lost last season to the Portland Trailblazers. Wasn't, I would say, not really shocking to me because I was kind of high on the Trailblazers. I think they were an up-and-coming team and had a lot of momentum. But for the Clippers, it was totally unacceptable to lose that early in the playoffs. With that said, Keith, do you think that the CP3 and Blake Griffin duo has kind of run its course in LA and they need to try something different? Or do you think they kind of turn it around this year and kind of spark the Clippers through, at least the conference finals?
Yeah, I think this is the last chance for them as a pairing. They're both going to be free agents at the end of the season. They're both almost definitely opting out of their current contracts, so that'll make them both free agents. And then if they can't get it done this year, I think it's time for one of the two of them to go and move on. There's all the talk of, CP3 going and forming up and playing as the Super Friends and all that. I don't think that's going to happen because I don't know where it's going to happen. If it does, I can't see LeBron just locked into Cleveland, and I can't see them all going to Cleveland. So we'll see what happens with that. There's been a lot of talk around Blake Griffin that they were very disappointed in what happened last year. He's just getting himself back from one injury, and then he punches a team employee and breaks his hand. Just not a good situation there at all. This is the second or third straight year he's kind of gone missing towards the end of the year on them when they really need him most. So it's not a great situation there, and Chris can be a tough guy to play with. You hear a lot of these guys, he's really rough on people. He's the epitome of the old school point guard who wants to run things, and he'll let you know. So I don't know if it's done yet, but it's close. It's probably on its last thread this season.
All right, Matt, what you think?
I agree. I think this is it for them if they don't get it done this year. And I think it would have been it last year had they not have both gone down against Portland in the playoffs. I think you may have seen a trade happen. But, yeah, they're definitely both going to opt out. But you mentioned something of Blake disappearing, and we talked about we've talked about it before with Czar and stuff. And it's like it's typically Blake Griffin with him and Chris Paul, like in the biggest moments. He just turns into this stupid basketball player. Like against the Spurs, they beat the Spurs a couple years ago in the first round, but in that day had a close. I forgot what game it was. I think it was game 1 or 2. They end up losing. I think it was game 2. They lose, and they're up, and he's trying to make spin moves in the lane and throw passes. He's throwing the ball out of bounds, and it's like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And it always seems that he just he reverts back to that stupid Blake Griffin in big moments. It's like he's like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, I think with Chris Paul, I think he's kind of at its wit's end with Blake Griffin just because, Chris Paul is the ultimate competitor. He wants you to give 110% every time. And I don't think we see that very often, kind of later in the season, as you alluded to, Keith. I think Blake Griffin's kind of in play around mode and just wants to goof off sometimes. And it's like, dude, do you know how dominating you could be if you took this as serious as
kind of like Dwight Howard?
Kind of very similar to that. And With Blake Griffin, we all know the rumors were out there over the summer of the multi kind of team deals that he was involved in, and we're not going to go into that because it's over with. But it kind of shows you that the team is like, look, you either need to shape it up and basically bring all you've got this year, or you aren't going to be here. And they definitely, if they get a sense that Blake is kind of pushing to not return in any form or fashion, you better believe that they're going to try to move him and get something out of that. They're not going to lose him for nothing, I would hope.
Yeah. I want to say this. When he went out last year and they played really, really well. Chris Paul was leading the team. JJ became the second option on offense. They were playing very good. And people were saying, well, are they better without Blake Griffin? And the experts come out, oh, that's just blasphemy. Well, is it blasphemy? Think about it. Maybe not.
Yep.
Maybe they are better off without him. Maybe there's something to that. It's kind of like when the Rockets were out without Howard some of those times. Oh, you can't. They're not better without him. Well, they kind of are. So maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, I mean, you build that. You kind of take away that person that's not giving their all. I wouldn't say a cancer mentality, but someone that's not as focused, and you've got 13 other guys that are. They build that bond and find ways to make up for that loss of Blake Griffin. And that's exactly what they did. And having JJ Redick kind of be the person that basically got them started in games worked perfectly. We saw it time and time again, knocked down 3 or 4 shots, gets a rhythm going, then CP3 can start doing his thing, get Blake some touches when he actually did play, and it worked smooth. But when Blake wasn't in there, it was JJ, then CP3, and even DeAndre Jordan actually got the ball some on actual plays instead of just throwing some lobs. So it was interesting. When Blake got back, it was a little bit like, okay, well, this is what we've got to go back to, kind of jab step, let me pull up from, 18 feet instead of dominating down in the post using your athleticism. And so I'll be curious to see if Blake goes back down, to the block and tries to do some work down there and use his speed and quickness and strength to his advantage. So that brings us into the third question. Keith, what do you think are the expectations for the Clippers this season? More or less, it's probably going to be playoffs. We know that. But what do you think their expectation is as far as where they would finish in the Western Conference, and where do you actually see them finishing?
I think the expectation is that they're competing, with Golden State and San Antonio at the top of the conference. I don't know if that's realistic. I think that might be a step outside of it, but I think they're firmly the third best team in the West. I have trouble seeing any of the kind of up-and-comers behind them catching them and passing them this year. It's all going to be health-based with them. If they're relatively healthy, they should be right behind San Antonio and Golden State. And, at that point, then it's get to the playoffs and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Right. Matt?
Yeah, they could finish as high as 2, I think. I mean, if things take longer for Golden State and San Antonio with their new acquisitions, and maybe they could get 1. I don't see it happening. And I got to say this. We all listen to Termini and Eddie Johnson. And Eddie Johnson thinks the Clippers are going to come out of the West, and he gives all these reasons of why Golden State is going to get beaten, this and that. Well, what have the Clippers done to prove that they can win? They can't even get out of the second round, and you're picking them to get all the way to the finals? Like, I know he was an NBA player, scored 21 a game off the bench in like 20 minutes, the playing time and all that stuff, but, I mean, he makes some of the dumbest comments. It makes no sense to me. They're the best team in the West, get to the finals? No way. I don't see it. They have yet to show that they can win. They can win big series. For the exception of San Antonio in the first round, and it was a banged-up Spurs team at that.
Mm-hmm. It's all about that shock value, especially on SiriusXM. What's gonna drive callers, and what's the most insane thing that you can say, and that's about up there because, like you said, the Clippers haven't proved it, and there's no way I will bet my entire bank account that the Clippers don't make the NBA Finals. I mean, I could bet this entire wall back here on the Clippers not making the finals. That's how confident I am in it. Now the Clippers right there about 3 or 4 is where I have them. I do like the Rockets on offense, and I like the Portland Trailblazers kind of bringing back their core group, adding in what seems to be a rejuvenized Evan Turner might actually be beneficial for them. So they're going to be right there in the hunt, that 3, 4, and 5 spot. That's all going to be kind of up in the air.
Plus they got Festus Ezeli, Myers Leonard will be back from injury. And as Keith said, I read a tweet earlier, Vonleh looking decent.
He did. He looked good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if they can get something out of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about basically health. And you're going to have to see what you can get from Paul Pierce as well to help. Basically not only being a veteran in the locker room, but can he give you something to kind of spark another score just in a couple games when it comes playoff time? He doesn't have to do a lot during the regular season. Will J.J. Redick have another good year? That's going to be a key because he's going to be counted on for shooting, of course. So it's all just going to depend on health and kind of see where they fall.
Mm-hmm.
So going into the fourth question, Keith, give me a couple keys that you think will make or break the Clippers season.
Yeah, we all said the first one, health, right? That's going to be the biggest thing if they can get to the playoffs healthy. Because of that, I'll use it as my second key is, does Doc actually make use of the depth he has? Because he's had depth the last couple of years, but he hasn't used it great. He still plays older guys like CP3, Griffin, who tends to break down a little bit, plays them too many minutes. So if he can back off those guys, give them some rest, he'll really use his depth. He's got enough depth that when they're going against the bottom rung teams, when they're going against the in-town rival Lakers, he could probably get away with sitting a couple of those guys and still get the win. When you're on the East Coast and you're on that, 4th and 5 night period and, you've got a long road trip, just sit those guys out, let some of the backups play big minutes and let them get out there and do what they can do, and you probably win a game here or there. So that's my second one. And then the third one is, can they find someone to reliably give them a third offensive weapon if injuries do strike? Because clearly it's going to be Griffin, Paul, and Redick as their 3 number 1 guys on offense. But if one of those guys goes down, can somebody else give them offense without having to pull away from another guy? Like Jamal Crawford's a great offensive player, but he's a great offensive player off the bench because he can do it by himself. With other bench guys. If he's out there with the starters, he doesn't mix quite as well because he needs the ball all the time. So they've just got to get that figured out. If they can do that, they're going to be in pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, what are some keys for you?
Yeah. One, obviously health, specifically Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, J.J. Redick, because Redick's had the on and off back issues. Chris Paul typically seems to miss at least, a month every year. Blake Griffin's had the injury history. So obviously you want to keep those 3 guys healthy. DeAndre Jordan hasn't typically had too many problems staying healthy, so I'm not too worried about him. 2 is going to be the bench. Like they've been really deep, but like Keith said, Doc just hasn't used them. I think this is where, as Keith was saying, finding that next score, I think that's where Spates can really help them because he doesn't need to just dribble, shoot. Get him an open shot, he'll knock down open threes, set up medium range shots, offensive rebounding, dunks, and stuff like that. I think he can be a key guy for them if they need that next scorer. And then third, get something from that small forward position. You know what you're going to get from Bamute with the defense, but can he give them anything on the offensive end? I think that's going to be big for their team.
Okay. Only one that I have that's different from you guys is the consistency shooting. Can they get enough out of someone other than Jamal Crawford jacking shots up, J.J. Redick being able to shoot? Can a healthy Allen Anderson be able to help from the perimeter? can a guy like Mo Spates consistently shoot the ball when he comes in? He's going to play, probably on and off as far as minutes. Some nights he'll play more than others. Brandon Bass, can he knock down that mid-range and, stretch the defense there? That's going to be the key. And then Wesley Johnson, if he can consistently come up with a jumper, he's got a lock on that small forward spot moving forward. Maybe not the beginning of the year as they probably go with Mbah Amute, but I think long-term, he can etch out a spot because he did end up re-signing with them over a guy like a Matt Barnes who they were negotiating with. So now is his chance to prove to the Clippers and show the rest of the league what he can actually do on a consistent basis. Last question, guys. Keith, give me a bold prediction that you've got for the Clippers this year.
I'm going to give you two for the price of one.
Okay.
First one is Paul Pierce has one more big playoff moment in him. He's going to win them a game at some point in the playoffs. Maybe not just with a game winner, but where he has one of those 15 points in a quarter, dials it back one more time, one last great moment before he goes out. Then my second one is I think they're going to make the West Finals, and they'll lose to Golden State probably fairly handily, 4 or 5 games. But I think they're going to get past the Spurs. I think the Spurs have more holes than people are thinking about, and people are writing off those holes because they're the Spurs. I think the Clippers, if they can put it all together, they've got all the necessary things to get there for the first time and challenge. So they'll fall short of the ultimate goal, but they'll get to the West Finals.
Nice. Matt, give me a bold prediction.
I am going to say J.J. Redick, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, all 3 75 games played this year, minimum.
Nice. So you're predicting them all to stay healthy.
Yeah, all of them, yes, which has not happened, all of them. So I'm going to predict all of them.
All right. Blake Griffin gets moved at the trade deadline. Nice. I don't know how bold that is, but I think the Clippers realize they've probably come to the end of the road. They're not going to lose CP3. I think they'll do anything they can to re-sign him and make sure he comes back. Try to get some young pieces for Blake Griffin, get what they can. I don't really know where you would move them, maybe a OKC or something where they can get some guys back that could help them in the rotation long term. But I just don't see Blake making it through the season there. So maybe not as bold as the Western Conference Finals, but definitely something that could happen. So that wraps us up for the Los Angeles Clippers preview. Keith, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us as always.
Of course, happy to be here.
Yeah. So real quick, let everybody know that's watching and that's listening where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find my written work at RealGM.com and at today'sfastbreak.com. If you're looking for Celtics-specific coverage, I am part of the team at Celtics Blog, getting things cranked up there as the season's starting. And then on Twitter, you can find me at Keith Smith NBA. Now that the season's going, I'm tweeting a lot more. Be doing some impromptu Twitter Q&As when I have time. So fire me questions, and I'll get back with you, as quick as I can on those nights, and we'll go from there. Excited to get it all started.
All right. And I encourage everybody not to go anywhere because in about another 5 minutes or so, we're going to start rolling through the New Orleans Pelicans season preview. But in the meantime, if you would like to catch any of our other episodes, you can check us out on iTunes, Unquestionably Raw Podcast. Go subscribe, leave us a review. Also, go to our YouTube page, like the videos, subscribe to the page, and leave us a comment as well so we know how we're doing, anything you would look for. Or you can ask us questions because we tend to reply pretty quick with some answers and just some things we've got coming up. So we'll see you guys in just a little bit for that Pelicans preview.